Isn't spring your favorite season? Watching the flowers blooming up out of the ground, watching the snow melt down. Boy, you may take winter time, but spring is my joy. It's got me feeling so glad the days are breezy. You got the time to say hello and give a smile. Feeling real good is in style. You may take winter time, but spring is my joy. It's something special, haven't you observed? It makes you glad to be alive. It's not absurd to say that spring helps you survive the winter's long.
Because, you know, it is spring. I mean, it's like 38 and raining. But it is spring. So we're going to do spring jazz standards all the way through the show today. I mean, the show is Ask or Tell Me Anything, and you are quite welcome to call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR, and say whatever you want to say. All right, I'm going to go to, even though he's not exactly the first caller, I'm going to go to Jeff because Jeff is driving and because he has three different topics, and I'm just intrigued. I'm intrigued. So, Jeff, you have the floor. You're going to be the first caller of the day.
All right. Hey, well, nice to talk with you. As I told your receptor there, I don't know if that's the right word. I gave you a choice of three topics to talk about. One would be, and I've actually called in about this before, the music always behind ads. Another one is about the Supreme Court. It's a little discussion about that. And the other one would be about the writer, Michael Connelly.
I wonder if there's a way to sort of combine like the Lincoln Lawyer with the music behind Lincoln car commercials with Matthew McConaughey in them, and also discuss whether Matthew McConaughey would be a good Supreme Court justice. And then we'd have the whole thing, you know, we'd have the whole thing. I don't know. You decide. They're all kind of intriguing to me. So what's your passion project of those three things?
Boy, that's a good one. I think what I could go on about the longest, but I won't go on too long, is Michael Connelly. I think probably people know him from the Lincoln Lawyer movie or series, and also the series Bosch. He's the writer of both of those. I don't know if everybody knows that. And what's interesting to me is that in the books, it come to find out, Bosch and the Lincoln Lawyer, Mickey Haller, are related. They're half brothers. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I mean, I've actually read a number of Michael Connelly books, and also he's like a guy who, when the significant other and I go on a long car trip, we're going to go up to Montreal in May. Michael Connelly novels really great, you know, to do as an audible in the car. They're perfect, and tend not to be too long too. So you got 4 or 5 hours going up there and 4 or 5 hours going back. You can probably knock the whole thing off. Not that I encourage people to do that, but yes, I mean, there's something very nice and very conversational about the way that he writes too.
I agree, and he gets into details, but not so much that it drags you down. It just really explains things a lot. But what I really like is that at some point in the series, they meet up, and Bosch actually ends up going to the dark side. I don't want to spoil anything, but the quote is the dark side, not really, but you know, Mickey Haller's a defense lawyer, and Bosch joins him to investigate a lot of cases, which is kind of neat.
Right.
And what starts it off, what I found intriguing, was that the book starts off, I don't remember the name of the book, sorry, but a judge calls up Mickey Haller and says, this judge was murdered, and in his will it says that he wants you to take over all his cases. So when he goes to the lawyer's office to gather the cases, the files, whatever, he finds 2 detectives in there, and he has to kick them out because they're not supposed to be in there, and they're in there because of the murder, obviously, but he has to kick them out because there's a lot of confidential information there.
All right. Well, I don't want to spoil too much more. I think the novel you're thinking of is called The Alito Identity. I could be wrong, but listen, thanks for your call, Jeff. Thanks for your passion about Michael Connelly. It's good to start the show with something other than, you know, what we're going to wind up talking about a lot, probably. So we'll go now to Anthony. Technically was the first caller of the day. We should say that Anthony and Jeff and all other callers who call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR will receive the good offices of, what did he just call her, a receptor? Anyway, you'll have a chance to interact with Robin Doyen-Aiken, who, unlike a lot of us, has a personality, and it's a very nice personality, and so you'll enjoy that. That's like a little plus. that the first person you talk to will not be me. It will be Robin, who's far nicer to talk to, actually. And I don't know about calling her a receptor, though. I don't even really know what that means exactly, but on the other hand, I also sort of like it. All right, here's Anthony from New Haven. Did you have a good and fruitful encounter with the receptor you spoke to?
I did. Robin is wonderful. So I too. I don't know about calling her a receptor, but there's got to be a better superlative for Robin.
It sounds like a minor Transformers character, you know?
Right.
Dispatch receptor immediately.
At any rate, we need to discuss, Colin, an issue that's been flying under the radar. There's been a lot of coverage recently about flight collisions and near misses. President Trump addressed this issue by instructing the Treasury Secretary, Sean Duffy, to hire MIT geniuses to be air traffic controllers. This idea, I think, is ridiculously smart. Our current crop of air traffic controllers cannot even spell DEI, and I think we need to discuss a recruitment strategy for luring these MIT geniuses from the ivory tower into the air traffic control tower.
Well, first of all, isn't this just kind of isn't that where his uncle went? Doesn't he have some uncle who he thought was a genius who either went there or taught there or something? Like MIT geniuses, this is not the first time they've come up. And I think it has something to do with Trump's uncle. And I'm sure Lily Tyson or somebody's looking that up right now. But so I just feel like there are so many options available. I'm being the straight man here, Anthony. I feel like there's so many options available to MIT geniuses. You know, they could take over crypto. They could just make a lot of money with facial recognition software they've invented. There's so much they could do in today's fascinating America. Why would they want the high pressure, low paying job of an air traffic controller? I mean, not as totally low paying, but compared to what an MIT genius could probably make on the open market, it would seem like, maybe not the most remunerative choice.
Well, I assume that, Trump would appeal to their sense of patriotic duty and public service, or perhaps even, his, own need for fealty. So perhaps there are, more than a few Trumpians hiding in plain sight at MIT, even the genius ones. And by the way, are all MIT people geniuses? I mean, do you just assume that anyone coming from an MIT is a genius, or would there be some sort of screening mechanism to make sure that any applicants are actual geniuses?
I think it just shows up in urine. So, you take that test. Yeah, no, and they can't all be geniuses. Otherwise, saying MIT geniuses would be a tautology, right?
That is true.
So, I mean, you wouldn't even say that, because you have to distinguish between the MIT geniuses and the MIT dummies. You don't want to hire the dummies.
Yeah, maybe we could get the MIT. Maybe the geniuses wouldn't want, the air traffic control job, but maybe the MIT dummies.
The MIT dummies are often, they often will take what they can get. So I think we're making some progress here. Was there anything else you wanted to elaborate on about this?
I thought it was actually, I'm serious when I say this issue flew under the radar. I did not hear much talk about it.
I mean, I see what you're doing there with that little trope there. We're noticing that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Flying under the radar. Yeah, we get it.
You get me.
I get you. Yeah, by the way, his uncle's name is John G. Trump, and he taught physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, died in 1985. And he says that he was a rare breed of super genius. Although his transcript is marked dummy. So, who knows?
Well, that super genius, that sounds like is that a form of a superhero?
Now we've got three levels. We've got super genius, we've got genius, and we got dummy. So it's getting more complicated. Anthony, I'm going to move on here, but as usual, you've gotten us off on an interesting tangent. Okay, let's see. I like to mix these things up a little bit. Let's talk to Michael from Avon. Hi, Michael.
Good afternoon. Rhododendron are they're kind of and I say this admiringly, the Walmart of Connecticut bushes or flora. They're easy to grow. Everybody's got them. It seems like every landscaper has put them in every possible location. They bloom in May and June, or maybe it's late April and May, and they're beautiful, but I don't know if you've noticed this. They're in distress. The leaves are curled up and brown, not just on the ones in my pathetic yard, but even in my better-kept neighbor's yard, the people who actually spend the time to nurture these things. And I just didn't know if you or your listeners knew why.
No, I know somebody who would know why. I don't really have access to him right at the moment. But I'll even shout him out right now. I walk almost every day in the morning with a guy named Tom Droney who knows he's a gardener, but he's a super gardener. You know what he is? He's an MIT super genius gardener. That's what he is. He knows everything, and he would be able to talk about rhododendrons for a good 20 minutes here. But so are you wondering whether there's some kind of specific blight, some kind of rhodoborer that's getting in there right now?
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if is there a climate condition, or is it something to do with the moisture in the air, or maybe the plants are particularly susceptible to, a spiraling republic? I don't know, but it's concerning.
While my rhododendron gently weeps. Yeah, maybe they're just weeping. They're weeping for the State of the Union.
Can I give you one more linguistic thing before I split?
Yeah, although you already did one linguistic thing, because I think you said rhododendron as plural. Maybe the plural of rhododendron is rhododendron. There's certain words like that.
I think I've been admonished in the past, and people have corrected me. So I think that's why I stuck.
Okay.
The other, obviously, the nation may be headed for whatever, but the one thing that I'm never going to get over, I'm 56. I'm going to die soon, but nowhere in those remaining years will I ever get over the abuse that the president and just the existence of the word Trump. He has ruined a very useful word. There is no other set of words that work quite as efficiently as the verb trump, to trump something. And I'm, maybe it's small potatoes given the demise of the republic, but it bothers me.
I think this is a good project for us. There's two courses we could take. One of them is to just kind of get out, not a thesaurus. I don't like thesaurus. What's the one Rodale Synonym Finder? That's what it is. That's the best synonym book. But get out a synonym finder, see what our options are for Trump, and then if that doesn't work, we could invent a new word, and we could turn it into crypto currency. Somehow we would get paid, you and I, every time the word got used.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. It'll replace my 401k.
Yeah, so exactly. Good, because you're going to need that. All right. Well, thanks for everything. If anybody out there knows what the heck is wrong with the rhododendrons or rhododendron, could that really be could the plural of rhododendron be rhododendron? To me, that's an even bigger question than what's wrong with them. But if anyone out there knows the answer to this question, keep it to yourself. No, call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Talk to Robin Doyen-Aiken, who actually, I think, does know a lot about plants and gardening. Or maybe she just knows about how to cook them. If you have a really good rhododendron recipe, you should definitely share that with us too. No. According to Britannica, the plural is rhododendrons. So let's just stop with all that. And what we'll do right now, I'll take one more call because we got a bunch of calls here and they're all important. We might have an answer. I love answers. Here is Chris in Avon. Hi, Chris.
Howdy. You know what? It was a very rough winter for rhododendron. And we are still in a drought. So that's distressing to plants. And also we had a pretty long period there, like all of February, where it was pretty darn cold, a lot of cold northern wind. All of that is going to, not be great for rhododendrons. And my own rhododendrons didn't look so great. So I've had this experience in the past, and upon professional advice, I have, gone to a therapist, but also really pruned back the brown parts of the rhododendron, and they recover. Yeah, for a while, it looks like a Dr. Seuss plant, but eventually they come back better than ever.
So that's all. I mean, I don't know anything about gardening, and I certainly don't know anything about Rhododendron dumatati, which I believe is the actual plural. But I do know kind of generally that pruning is usually a pretty good idea. People should prune more. And if you got a problem, you start by cutting it off. See if something better grows back in place of it. That's my level of gardening understanding. But you clearly understand so much more. Oh, the other thing I would say about the Rhododendron dumatati, and I think you're getting at it too. One thing that I have noticed, I think a little bit more than usual this year. We may need to get Garrett Argianis involved in here. We need more skulls. But I feel like it's kind of toggled back and forth between cold and warm, cold and warm, cold and warm, cold and warm. And that can't be good for plants. You send them a little signal here. It's going to be 65 for a while. Nope, sorry, it's 33. The plants can't possibly like that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
All right. But am I right? All right. So, we got one more I don't know. What should I do? No, I think I'm going to take Josh and then we're going to go to a break. That's my plan. Which is not to say that I'm not willing to talk more to Carolyn about Rhododendron dumatati. But I can't talk all day about this. Other people are calling up. All right. So we're going to instead go to Josh. Hi, Josh. You there?
I am here. Thank you, Colin. How are you?
I am just fine. I think you're about to talk about something that I was already thinking about earlier today, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of making a beef stew, and I think, one of the things that we can all do to keep our souls together is gather around the home hearth and make food. I think making food is just very important, making it home. I know there are people who don't have time. I'm not trying to throw any shade against people who get stuff delivered, but the value of a home cooked meal made with love, I just can't be underestimated.
I think that's true. I've been, I've been a fairly avid cook for a long time. I've actually gotten sort of to the point where I like the New York Times cooking section and their online cooking existence so much that I'll just sort of browse around and find something that looks like I could probably get the ingredients for pretty quickly. So I made last night this thing. It's a white fish. I think I used halibut, but it's in a creamy tomato sauce with mushrooms and bacon. And oh boy, was it good.
Sounds great.
It was really good.
Yeah.
You can just find it right there on their website, and it is excellent. The other thing that, can I just say one more thing, and then you can say your thing too. So, to your point, and this is something that I've talked to people a lot. I was talking to my friend Bill Curry about this recently. I said, one of the problems with cooking for friends is it kind of became performative at a certain point. I'm not blaming Martha Stewart or anybody in particular, but it was like, if you're going to have a dinner party, it's got to be like this 4-star meal, with this exquisitely laid out table and stuff like that. And I know people who do that really well and can pull it off. But, when we were younger, you'd make up a big pot of spaghetti sauce and get some bread and whip up a salad and get some cheap red wine and invite 4 or 5 friends over. And it was just like, no fuss, no muss. Well, some muss, actually. But and I feel that gets lost a little bit. Like we feel if we're going to have people over, it's got to be this exquisite, thing. And it doesn't. I mean, the people are what's important, and then just some good hearty food to go along with them.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't do a lot of stuff like that. But occasionally I have friends over, but more I cook for my family. Mm-hmm. And I have a similar experience, except slightly different, in that one of my kids has gone away to school. And now because she's out of our house, she really appreciates food in a different way than I have twin sons who are just like, oh, Dad's making this, or oh, Dad's making chicharron, or oh, Dad's making udon, and they like yawn. They're like, oh yeah, that's good. Daughter, you're
breaking up a little bit, Josh.
But
I think those the winds, the rhododendron killing winds on Long Island are causing your phone to break up a little bit. But I think you make a really good point, and I forget who wrote it, but there's a book that's called Much Depends on Dinner, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about too. All right, we're going to go to a break right now. That'll make everybody happy. The number, if you want to call in and talk about anything, 888-720-9677.
I never knew the charm of spring, never met it face to face. I never knew my heart could sing, never missed a warm embrace till April in Paris.
Support comes from Springfield Museums, presenting Van Gogh for All, an experientially rich exhibition that uses modern technology and participatory learning to showcase artists' genius, personal struggles, and creative process. SpringfieldMuseums.org.
Project 2025 was a guide to remaking America. The Conservative Heritage Foundation also wrote Project Esther, which is a guide to dealing with anti-Semitism.
It calls for an administration to rebrand pro-Palestinian protesters as Hamas supporters.
The Trump administration appears to have read it. Next time on Today Explained.
This afternoon at 3:30.
Doom scrolling won't make you smile. Listening to this station just might.
Let's start with contagious peeing among chips. Sorry, it's NPR. We should say urination.
Yes.
Contagious urination. What is going on?
And apparently there are also therapy llamas. Of course, NPR is all over the story.
Help us keep your news diet well-rounded. Donate to this station today, and thank you.
Support comes from Hartford Stage, whose production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is on stage April 17th through May 18th with romance, tragedy, and sword fighting. Directed by Malia Bensison. Tickets at hartfordstage.org.
Come spring, come back the green and beautiful things. Come back, my love, while stars above are awakening. Come spring, come back blue skies and birds on the wing.
All right, so see, when Dylan Reyes and I picked out all this music, we didn't realize we were getting so many calls about plants. But it's all working. It's like we did plan it. All right, and William, I promise I'm going to get to you. It's just we're sort of in a we're in a little groove here. I want to just sort of wrap this part of it up. I want to say a couple of things. One of them is, I feel like I'm usurping the role of our sibling show Where We Live. It's tomorrow at 9 a.m. and then, forever after on podcasts, is doing one of their gardening episodes with Charlie Nardozzi. And Charlie Nardozzi is, he's like the Columbo of gardening experts. He's like, hey, excuse me, Miss Aiken, one more thing. When did you notice that the Rhododendronati were dead? So anyway, I feel like I don't want to, step on any toes here, or root clusters, whatever. But we're going to talk to two more people about all this, and then I swear to God, we're going to get out of this. All right, here is Sandy. Sandy's going to go first. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Fine. I just wanted to make a comment that the rhododendron are not the only ones that were suffering last year. It was also the hydrangea, which I noticed were much drier and the bloom didn't last as long.
You're saying that last year that was because I thought everywhere I looked last year I saw hydrangea or however
you did, but they didn't last as long into the summer as they normally do, and there are specific species like Forever Summer that really do last all summer long, but unfortunately they did not. And I agree with the previous caller who talked about the drought, the wind conditions, different variables. But it's very important to make sure that we're pruning away any dead debris in early spring, which is now.
Yeah.
And making sure that they're healthy for the summer so that we can get the most out of them.
Also, sometimes you think you're buying Forever Summer. There's another hybrid that's called Unfortunately Summer. And if you get that one, it just doesn't work out as well. So, but anyway, thanks for a lot of that. Yes, I'm totally pro pruning until somebody tells me otherwise. I'm just in favor of pruning. And I mean, I think that, I have no idea what I'm talking about. All right, one more, then I swear, then the case closed, all right? One more, and then it'll be case closed. Here's Quint in Brantford. Hi, Quint.
How are you, Colin?
I'm fine.
Good. I just wanted to let you know, the rhododendron situation is called desiccants.
Desiccants?
Yes, that's the name of the phenomenon, if you will. The moisture is being sucked out of the leaves throughout the course of the winter, that really cold snap we had, it pulls the moisture out of it. I've been treating rhododendrons for the last 26 years now, so I'm getting the hang of it.
All right.
And
yes, I would say you probably know your Rhododendron pneumonati about as well as anybody at this point.
Last week, I really nailed it.
Yeah.
In the fall, there's actually something called anti-desiccant spray you can use, which is basically pine tar that's sprayed on the leaves themselves. It's kind of like chapstick for trees.
Yeah, I use it on my body.
It helps. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I've done it myself, and it's not as much fun as you would think, though.
No, it's not. I had a condition I thought it would be helpful with, and but wrong guess on my part.
Yeah, if you read the label wrong, it can be a real problem.
Yeah, don't do that at home. The anti-desiccant only goes on the rhododendrons. It does not go on you.
Right. You can actually put it on hollies or any broadleaf plant that you see that has like a waxy coating on it.
Right.
You can use it on the hollies and things like that.
But not on Graham Nash or on anyone named Holly.
That's true. And for the other cut, the people were concerned about the health of the rhododendrons. In the event of a nuclear war, there's going to be cockroaches, Twinkies, and rhododendrons, the only things left.
It sounds like a beautiful paradise without us. We won't even know about it, but it'll be cool.
Very hardy, very hardy, very healthy plants. And don't be so concerned about what's going on right now. It's happened almost every year to almost every rhododendron. Not a big deal.
All right. I was getting a little worked up, and now I am calmed down. I feel as though all of the tension is just flooding out of me now. All right, here we go. Poor William's been waiting for quite a long time because he had the misfortune not to want to talk about rhododendrons. All right, William, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. I don't have a garden, and I never have. As people may have been noticing that in the world today, the financial system is really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary. And for the last month or so, my son and I have been getting more acquainted with the crypto world. Previous to that, I just, like everybody else, I don't know anything about that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But as a result of what he and we have found out, there's going to be a big change, and people might be hurt and left behind. But one of the things that seems to be on the verge of flourishing are these crypto coins, especially one called XRP. And I'm not encouraging anybody to go spend their money on anything, but I am encouraging people to find out. It's important to be aware of all of these things that's going on in our financial world.
It is true. It is true, and I think a lot of us reach a point where we're a certain age, and we kind of figured out a few things as best we could, but we're just not ready to learn a new trick. There is something a little dispiriting about that idea. It feels like the death knell of a civilization that ultimately our financial investment salvation will be in stuff that, as far as I can tell, is linked to nothing. At least, if you own mutual funds, the mutual funds own stocks. The stocks are related to, frozen foods or Volkswagens or something. It just feels like now it's going to be, it's sort of like you know what it is? It's a Seinfeld economy. It's an economy about nothing. And maybe it's
the coins that are selling now are utility coins. They have a purpose. And because the other one, the Bitcoin, had no purpose.
Yeah.
But the one XRP is used for transfer of money, which in the past has taken 3 to 5 days for a bank or a country to send money to somewhere else, and this does it instantly and at very little cost. So
I would be remiss if I did not say that one of the first things that Donald Trump did, I think even prior to taking the oath of office the second time, was to set up this, this Trump coin stuff, which is legalized gambling. I mean, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, legalized bribery, excuse me. It's not illegal what's happening, but if you're, President Erdogan of Turkey and you would like to influence Donald Trump, or if you're anybody who wants to influence Donald Trump, all you have to do is make a big buy and then let him know you did it, and he obviously will benefit, he and his family will benefit from it tremendously, and you won't have committed a crime, and particularly if you're very subtle about the fact of letting him know, letting it drop somehow that you bought some, but he will feel, I would imagine, someone indebted to you. So it is
meme coins.
It's meme coins, but it is really literally legalized bribery. All right, so we're going to move on from that. He does make a good point, which is, I think my attitude towards cryptocurrency is I will know the minimum I need to know, but I won't really know enough to be able to function usefully in that environment. And maybe I need to do better. Okay, this is a good one. This is a very good one. We're going to go to Dennis. Dennis is joining us right now from, I did something wrong here. Hold on, what did I do? Okay, we might have to go to Sean first then, and then we'll go to Dennis. We'll go to Sean first. Hi, Sean. You're on the air. Sean from New Haven.
Hey, Colin. How are you?
Okay.
That was a perfect segue, that previous call, because I want to talk about a scheme that I believe is being played on all of us, and that is there's one person in the world who can really move the markets, and he has figured that out just by saying the word tariff, or then taking away the idea of the tariff. And each time he does that, he makes the market move up or straight down, and then back up, and then straight down. And while all of the talking heads are discussing what the theory behind this tariff is, I believe the theory is that this is a grift, and he's simply investing counter to what everybody else is doing.
So you think what he does is like a half an hour beforehand, he calls up Eric and says, I'm going to make it go down again. And then Eric, shorts some stuff. We shouldn't say, in the absence of proof, we probably shouldn't say that, but it's not implausible.
It's not implausible, and I think it's one way to bring a bunch of billionaires onto your cabinet and hold them close by letting them in on certain things. Certainly something people should think about. I haven't heard it spoken about in any sort of great way yet, but I think as people watch their 401ks disappear, they're going to wonder where all that money went.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is, of course, markets move selectively. They don't move as a herd entirely anyway. And so, I mean, you could say something, you could make a tariff announcement. I mean, you would have to get kind of granular about this to have it work as a series of stock options. But I mean, it's not unimaginable that such a thing could be accomplished. Okay, I've done something bad to Dennis's call, and I think I might have lost it in either that or maybe it can be retrieved or something. Okay, you want to try to put it on from there? All right. I'm seeing it now. I did something bad. I don't know what it was. Here's Dennis. Dennis has a really good question. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Colin. How are you doing today?
Just fine.
All right. Good to hear. Over the weekend, I got invited by some friends to play some pickleball, and I have never done that, and I do have a pickleball paddle, but I went on YouTube last night to kind of look at, what the layout of the deal is, and I figured I'd give you a call and just get some advice and consent about participating in this new dance craze, and what should I be aware of, and how important is it to really get into the game.
This is just my opinion. One of my college friends, Scott Sherman, who likes me to say his name on the air, Scott Sherman. He got big into pickleball at a certain point because he needs a lot of things to occupy his time, because otherwise if he's retired, and now if his time is not occupied, he will use it pestering his college friends. So from that point of view, we're very excited about Scott getting into pickleball. I think my theory about pickleball, I'm about to offend a certain number of people here, but I don't care. My theory about pickleball is a little bit like my theory of Wordle, which is I think it's fine. It's fine just to do it, but we don't need to hear about it. In other words, Dennis, if you decide to go down this path, I think that's absolutely fine. And it is, I think, obviously a generational boon. It's all the people like me, baby boomers, who've had knee replacements and stuff. And it's something you can still kind of do. And it's nice to have a game you can still kind of do that maybe when you can't do other games anymore. So I think it's wonderful. I think pickleball is good. But it is like Wordle. Like, I really don't want to hear people's Wordle. So I don't want to see people's Wordle scores. I think it's fine they're playing Wordle. But it's just like not anything I need to know about. And I think one problem about pickleball is that once you start doing it, you kind of want to talk about it. And I think if you do go that route, Dennis, I would just keep the conversation with your fellow pickleball players, and don't accost people on public transportation to talk about pickleball.
All right. I think it's pretty solid stuff I could follow.
Yeah, but good luck, and I think you're gonna. I hope you have a wonderful time. I think it's a great thing. Whoever invented it was a genius. I mean, they absolutely knew the market that they were in. So yeah, have a ball, have a pickleball. All right. So here's what's going to happen. First of all, I don't have any calls. I don't have any calls right now. Not that would bother me. I mean, I could talk for the next 18 minutes quite easily. But we are going to take a break. If you want to be on the air with something. I think we've established that it doesn't really have to be about major themes in the news, but it could be. 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Yeah, I want to say thank you to somebody, too, but I'm going to do it on the other side of all this stuff. So we'll be back.
That it's so that my fancy may turn in the spring with the right one in sight. One can find a perpetual thing. Did I need spring to bring the ring that you bought me, though it was spring? That wondrous day that you caught me, darling, I thought we knew that it wasn't spring, 'twas you.
You're listening because you stand with the facts. Thank you.
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from the Stowe Center for Literary Activism, offering history, not house tours. Visit stowecenter.org.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. We'll get more reaction to the growing trade war between the U.S. and the rest of the world, plus Jennifer Haig's novel Rabbit Moon, inspired by her time living in Shanghai.
It was really disorienting. It was hard to keep landmarks, in fact, because you could see the city remodeling before your eyes.
Next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon at 2.
Why wait for the next episode of your favorite PBS show? With CPTV Passport, you don't have to. Stream full seasons of hits such as All Creatures Great and Small, Miss Scarlet, Funny Woman, Vienna Blood, and more before episodes premiere on television. Be the first to know what happens next, only with CPTV Passport. Don't miss out. Visit ctpublic.org/passport to donate and start streaming today.
Support comes from TheaterWorks Hartford, presenting Primary Trust, the 2024 Pulitzer Prize-winning play by Ebony Booth, about new beginnings, old friends, and seeing the world again for the first time. Begins April 10th through May 11th. Tickets at twhartford.org.
All right, that was the Maestro's Choice. Dylan Ray's picked that up as part of our spring music theme today. That's The Promise of Spring by Joey Alexander. You heard Blossom Dearie coming out of that last break, too. Okay, so going into that last break, or something. The number's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNBR. Thanks to Dylan Ray's the Maestro. Our technical producer, Robin Doyen Aiken, as was previously mentioned, is being thoroughly engaging to people calling up on the phones in a way that I could never be. And the producer of this episode is Lily Tyson. It's part of Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. And I have to thank one other person. Maybe more than that, but I want to thank Brett. So I was going to I wanted to go cover and experience one of the April 5th protest, the one at the Connecticut State Capitol in Hartford. And so what I did was I parked up here at the Connecticut Public Building, and I walked down to the State Capitol in Bushnell Park. And while I did that, I apparently dropped my key card. And it was found by somebody, wound up in the possession of Brenda from Catholic Charities, who got it back to me today in a very gracious and accommodating way. And so that's a mitzvah, and you should call out mitzvahs, you know. So thank you very much for that. All right, so we are going to go back to the phones here. Superstar phone caller Iman from New Haven is there. Hi, Iman.
Hi, Colin. I wasn't going to call, but then you said you had no calls, so then I was like, oh, I'll just call.
Well, the minute you say you have no calls, you get lots of calls anyway. But I appreciate that you cared. I appreciate that you reached out.
Okay. So I have a question, a hypothetical for you about you, and I'm curious how you think you would be different if you were either a millennial or a Gen Z person.
I think that I could guarantee that I would embody whatever the most annoying traits ascribed to each generational cohort. I think I'm a pretty annoying baby boomer. So, and I'm just guessing, I don't even really know. Maybe you could help out with this. What would we say about millennials? What gets projected onto them that they're overinvested? Go ahead.
First, I have a question. What makes an annoying baby boomer?
I don't know. You listen to me. You could probably answer that question better than I can. But I just feel like, I try not to be an annoying baby boomer, but I don't think I'm necessarily succeeding. Part of being a baby boomer is you have to, every day you pay out a little bit more line. You sort of say, okay, that's the way I thought things were, but they're not that way. And then the next day you sort of say, okay, that's the way I used to talk about stuff like that, but that's wrong. I get it now. So you spend a lot of time just sort of paying out rope that you've accumulated around you. And I think I've tried to do that with a certain amount of good grace. But on the other hand, I still think Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young are really important and stuff. I could tell that's annoying.
Okay. And so as a millennial or Gen Z, you just think you'd be the most annoying
I think I would probably embody whatever it is that really bothers people about each generation. And I also do want to say that for a long time, I used to kind of even know what all the little tropes were about millennials and Gen Z, and I've kind of forgotten about them. I think one thing is, when I was teaching a lot, you're essentially teaching Gen Z. If you teach college, you're teaching Gen Z.
Yeah.
And
sure.
they aren't. The one thing that I would say about them was that they seemed more worried than any group of young people that I've ever met, and I totally get why that would be. And I would probably be kind of worried too.
Yeah.
But millennials, I don't know. Probably all the ways. Are you a millennial? What are you?
I am a millennial. Yeah.
How would you define your generation? What do you think is the sort of overarching vibe? See, it's hard because people are all different.
Yeah.
I think a sort of inconclusiveness, maybe, a kind of a lack of certainty about things. Does that sound right?
It may be. One thing, this is more practical, just that our generation is the first that will do worse off than our parents' generation. Yep. And I think that has very much colored the way that we approach the world and the way we approach finances and our sense of self professionally. But actually, my question, I was also just curious, would you have tattoos? I'm assuming you don't. And that was one of the things I was curious about. How would you, in that cultural way of just what is acceptable for one generation to the next?
First of all, I resent your inference that you draw about me. I have a tattoo on my back of Steve Inskeep as a mermaid.
Really?
Yeah, you really have to see it. Yeah, it's I'm very proud of it. I was stone cold sober when I made that decision too. So yeah, I don't know. You're right. I think first of all, the mental exercise that you're suggesting right now is a really interesting one, and I think one that's really, really difficult too. I think anybody who tells you that they would know how to switch generations, that they would know how to stop being, a Gen Xer and suddenly be Gen Z or whatever, I think they're lying. I think to have a lot of confidence about that is or not lying, but I think that would be overconfidence. I think it's so complicated. The time period that you inherit and the time period that you inhabit so shapes you in a way that I think people standing outside of it, like I really don't. It's like Thomas Nagel, what it's like to be a bat. I don't really know what it's like to be Gen Z. Because you have to go through things in your youth that I didn't go through. We have universal experiences, we have non-universal experiences, and the non-universal ones are very, very hard, I think, to derive just by observation. So I'm going to go the humility route. Anyway, what were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I think, someone who is Gen Z adjacent, I feel like I can very much imagine how, like, social media would have impacted me if I was, 14 and had Instagram and TikTok, and I think it would have been terrible. So I think I would love if I was Gen Z at the very least.
Yeah, I think for the Gen Zers that I taught, they were aware of this and they felt bad about it too. And they, for example, in particular, what they did during the pandemic, during, the sort of strictest parts of lockdown when they, weren't in classes and stuff like that, and how much time they would spend on TikTok, they really felt kind of soiled by all that. They weren't happy about it, but it was there, and it was sort of maybe what got them through. Well, as usual, a fascinating topic from Iman. Oh boy, we have all kinds of things to go here. Oh boy. I don't know what to do. Okay. Well, the more I dither, the less time I have. We're going to go to Sally right away. Sally in Guilford. Hi, Sally.
Hi. How are you, Colin?
Just fine.
That's good. I've actually it's my first time listening to your show. Not NPR, but listening to your show.
Well,
and
I hope there'll be a second time. I hope.
I was just going to say, and not my last.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah, I found the topics to cover such a broad range, and I was just kind of chuckling to myself because I could relate to almost every single thing that was mentioned. I'll start with the lighter subject, and that is, how would you like to know how pickleball got started?
I would like to know it about a 7 out of 10. That's how much I would like to know.
Okay, well, I'll make it quick. It's actually quite a funny story. It was started in Bainbridge Island, Washington State, where two fathers who were brothers had their kids for, off for school for the summer, and they were becoming frustrated with how do we keep these kids occupied, and they made up a game. And they made up the game that we now know as pickleball. The way in which the game got its name is that while the ball was going back and forth and the kids were getting into it, there was a little dog that they owned also called Pickle. And Pickle kept going after the ball, so they named the game pickleball. That is a true story.
I remember some of that now, particularly the Bainbridge Island part. I think it's sort of good that you don't move around too much in pickleball because otherwise you would fall into the ocean. You wouldn't want to have like a thing like, the early Native American lacrosse where you'd play it across acres and stuff. Well, listen, Sally, thanks so much for your call. I know you're also going to talk about cooking, so you'll have to do that the next time you call in. But I just wanted to squeeze, because this topic has not been mentioned all day, and I know people are interested in it. Here's Victor in Hartford with said topic. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Colin. So I moved away from Connecticut about almost 2 years ago and carried with me my passion for all things UConn basketball. And I was a bit surprised that the day after the UConn women won the championship following a 9-year drought, that there were no calls about UConn basketball. So I wondered, has the passion waned in the Nutmeg State about UConn basketball, particularly the women? Because I found it incredibly moving, and particularly given the 9-year absence and the culmination of Paige Becker's career.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you that another person whose name is Melissa has gotten in touch with me 2 different ways today to say that on Morning Edition, the kind of overarching March Madness segment only had 36 seconds of UConn basketball coverage, and then the rest was the men, and that Gino Auriemma's name wasn't even mentioned, and all. So you're not the only person who's wondering about that. And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think it's an interesting question, too, because as you probably know, last year, I think largely due to Caitlin Clark, it was the first time the women's final actually outdrew the men's final on television, which to me is a landmark event. I mean, that's really kind of remarkable when you think about. I mean, it used to be that that women's basketball was of interest. I mean, I'm talking about 90s, maybe early aughts. it was sort of really interesting to people who lived at certain places. If you lived in Connecticut or Tennessee, or there were like 4 or 5 other places, but then the rest of the country was like, women's basketball? Well, why would we be talking about that? And I think that whole thing has corrected, and we're in a different place right now. So you're right that it's sort of strange that more people didn't call up about it today, but Victor, life is strange. And on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. But thanks very much for calling in today, those of you who did. And sorry to Danny and Bernie and Dave. Lake Como, Dave. We'll get you next time. And also, Sally will come back on next week and talk about cooking, stress cooking. But we have to go now. Thank you.
Spring can really hang you up the most. I'm all alone. The party is over. Old man Winter was a gracious host. But if you keep on praying for snow to hide the clover, spring